Hey, what's up everybody? Today we're diving deep into the twisted mind of William Afton, the notorious antagonist from the Five Nights at Freddy's series. This guy isn't your run-of-the-mill villain, he's a masterclass in crafting a character that's as complex as he is terrifying. So grab your Fazbear plushie and let's dissect why William Afton stands out as one of the fiction's most brilliant antagonists. But William Afton wasn't just born a monster, he was shaped into one. The world didn't start with him already drowning in the depths of his own corruption. No. Like any other villain, Afton had a beginning, a starting point. His descent into darkness wasn't an overnight transformation, but a slow, methodical process, one that's been carefully constructed through the games, books, and lore surrounding the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. And in order to truly understand how he became one of the most terrifying and intelligent antagonists in modern fiction, we need to look at how he was first introduced and the circumstances that helped mold him into the twisted figure that we know today. And on the surface, William Afton seemed just like any other businessman with a vision. He was the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, the company behind the infamous Freddy Fazbear's pizza chain. But that's where the illusion ends. At his core, Afton was a man driven by his own ego, his selfish desires, and his thirst for control over the forces of life and death. It wasn't even enough for him to simply succeed in the world of business. He wanted to transcend it. He wanted to be something greater, to wield power beyond the limits of the human condition. And Afton's actions began with his creation of the animatronics, those innocent-looking, child-friendly robots that served pizza, sang songs, and entertained kids at the pizzeria. To the public, these animatronics were nothing more than the stars of the show, adorable and fun. But underneath it all, Afton's obsession with them was something far darker. His obsession wasn't just about building a business empire, it was about perfecting his creations, bending them to his will, and as we later learned, using them for something far more sinister. What most people didn't know, what only a select few in the company could have suspected, was that these animatronics were never meant to simply entertain. They were a means to an end. Behind the public face of the fun-loving, family-friendly restaurant, Afton was already beginning to commit his first acts of horror. He was already starting to lure children into a horrific fate. Afton, in a sick, twisted mind, saw the animatronics not as entertainers, but as tools. Tools that could have been used for far more than singing and serving pizza. And Afton's motive wasn't just about killing. It was about control. He wasn't just after innocent lives, he was after their very souls. The theory behind his actions, one of the most chilling aspects of his character, revolves around his belief that by killing these children, he could somehow capture their souls and use them to power his creations. The concept of the soul, and the potential to use it as an energy source, is where Afton's genius and madness intervene. In his mind, by harnessing these spirits of the children he murdered, he could create something greater than life itself. He could achieve immortality. But it wasn't just about the children he killed, it was about the power he felt when manipulating life and death itself. William wanted to escape mortality, to go beyond the limits of human existence. His work on the animatronics wasn't just mechanical, it was alchemical, metaphysical. His twisted ideas about the boundaries between life and death would later culminate in the creation of Springtrap, the very thing that will lead to his eventual downfall. But before we get ahead of ourselves, it's important to understand that Afton's evil didn't just happen overnight. His path was paved with selfishness, pride, and an insatiable desire for control. Afton was a man with a grand vision, but it was one tainted with such overwhelming greed and hubris that it became his undoing. Every murder he committed, every life he took, wasn't just an act of violence, it was a part of a larger, more insidious plan. He was willing to sacrifice anything and everything, his own morality, his family, and eventually even his life, in order to achieve his twisted version of immortality. And as we soon find out, his family paid the ultimate price for his obsessions. And the murder of his own son, the death of his daughter, and the eventual dissolution of his family all served to highlight the depths of Afton's depravity. Even his own flesh and blood were mere obstacles in his pursuit of his dark, twisted goals. He didn't just abandon them emotionally, he forsook them entirely. For him, family wasn't about love, protection, or bond. It was about achieving his own ends, no matter who or what had to suffer in the process. By the time the public would eventually come to know about his dark deeds, Afton had already sealed his fate. His descent from businessman to murderer was already complete. The lore surrounding Five Nights at Freddy's gives us clues, but we're still left with a character shrouded in shadows. An antagonist who, even after his death, continues to haunt the franchise with his influence. But what we do know for sure is that William Afton's genius was the perfect storm of ambition, madness, and technology gone horribly wrong. And it's this combination that elevates him from a run-of-the-mill villain to an iconic and unforgettable figure in the world of fictional antagonists. And to understand what makes William Afton such an effective and terrifying antagonist, we have to take a deep dive into his psychology. This isn't just some guy with a knife and a death wish, he's something far worse. He's a methodical, intelligent, manipulative predator. He's not driven by uncontrollable rage or insanity, but by cold, calculated purpose. Afton's evil is not random, it's deliberate. Every action he takes is carefully planned, executed with precision, and almost entirely devoid of emotion. At his core, Afton is the embodiment of a textbook sociopath. He displays a complete lack of empathy, a grandiose sense of self-importance, and an almost supernatural ability to manipulate the people around him. Unlike most villains who rely on brute force, Afton operates from the shadows, keeping his true nature hidden while pulling the strings behind the scenes. And that's what makes him so terrifying. He's not the monster under your bed. He's the monster who shakes your hand, smiles at your kids, and reassures you that everything is fine before leading them to their deaths. One of the most fascinating aspects of Afton's character is how well he masks his true intentions. Unlike a typical slasher villain, he doesn't wear his evil on his sleeve. He's a father, businessman, an inventor, and a seemingly normal member of society. But beneath that carefully constructed facade, he is something else entirely. He has no moral compass, no remorse, and no hesitation when it comes to committing atrocities. Think about how much effort Afton must have put into maintaining his double life. He was a co-founder of a massive entertainment business, designing animatronics and running restaurants, always secretly being a child murderer. The sheer duality of his existence is terrifying. It means that he was capable of walking among people, making decisions that affected families and employees, while simultaneously plotting the deaths of children in the very establishments he helped create. That level of control, of compartmentalization, is something that separates Afton from most other fictional villains. He isn't some rage-fueled lunatic who lashes out at the world. He is a mastermind who knows how to play the long game. He isn't just a killer. He is an orchestrator of horror. One of the defining traits of Afton's character is his obsession with control. He doesn't just kill for the sake of killing. He wants complete domination over life and death itself. This is most evident in his horrifying experiments with the animatronics. He doesn't just murder children, he traps them. Their spirits and their very essence are absorbed into his creations, forever enslaved in the purgatory of his making. And that is what makes him so uniquely terrifying. He doesn't just take lives, he steals them. He twists and corrupts innocence, bending it to his will for his own sick purposes. And the very fact that his victims remain trapped in the animatronics, suffering long after their deaths, is a testament to the sheer level of cruelty that defines Afton's brand of evil. Even after his own death, his obsession with control continues. His transformation into Springtrap is the ultimate representation of his unwillingness to let go. Even after being crushed inside the very suit he designed, even after years of decay and rot, he still comes back. He always comes back. Because in Afton's mind, death is not an ending, it's merely an obstacle. And another crucial aspect of Afton's psychology is his ability to manipulate those around him. He doesn't just kill, he deceives, he lies. He gets people to trust him, to let their guard down. He understands human nature well enough to exploit it. Take, for example, how he was able to lure children into his grasp. In multiple parts of the FNAF lore, you get the implication that Afton used his own business, his own likable persona, to gain the trust of parents and kids alike. He likely presented himself as a caring father figure, someone who genuinely enjoyed making kids happy. and because of this, no one suspected him. This level of deception is chilling because it mirrors real-life cases of some history's worst criminals. Many serial killers were able to continue their crimes for years simply because they were charming and outwardly normal. Afton embodies this idea perfectly. He doesn't look like a killer, and that's what makes him so dangerous. And even beyond his interactions with his victims, Afton also manipulates those closest to him. His business partner, Henry Emily, was deceived for years, unaware of the true horror happening right under his nose. His own family suffered immensely because of his actions, yet Afton never seemed to care. His son was killed as a result of his negligence, his daughter was lost in his experiments, and yet he never once slowed down. His ambitions always came first. And Afton doesn't just kill, he instilled fear, not just in his victims, but also on us, the players. His presence looms over the entire FNAF universe, even in the games, or in some of the games where he isn't physically present. His influence is still felt. He is a horror that lingers, an ever-present reminder that evil doesn't simply disappear. It lingers, it waits, and it always finds a way back. And the very idea that Afton has no clear motive behind his own selfish desires make him even more unsettling. We want to understand villains. We want to have an answer to the question, why did they do it? But Afton never gives us that clear answer. He exists beyond reason, and beyond redemption. And that is what makes him one of the greatest antagonists in modern fiction. He isn't just a murderer, he is a force of nature, an embodiment of pure, calculated, remorseless evil. And Afton is a man obsessed with transcending human limitations. His endgame was never about simply taking lives, it was about extending his own. His work with the animatronics wasn't just about creating an entertainment empire, it was about creating vessels, machines that could house something more than just wires and programming. This idea is reinforced throughout the Five Nights at Freddy's series. The lore strongly suggests that Afton believed in, or at least discovered, the ability to trap souls. When he murdered his victims, he wasn't simply discarding their bodies. He was binding their spirits to his creations, experimenting with how human consciousness could be transferred into something artificial. The animatronics weren't just machines, they were prisons for the souls of the victims. But here's where things really get even more twisted. Afton wasn't just interested in trapping other souls, he wanted to do it for himself. His ultimate goal wasn't just about creating haunted machines, it was about to become one. He wanted to escape mortality, to leave behind his fragile human body, and achieve a kind of twisted digital immortality. And in a way he succeeded. Even after his own death, Afton keeps coming back. First as Springtrap, then as a digital consciousness in FNAF VR, Help Wanted, and even later as Burn Trap. No matter how many times he is destroyed, his presence lingers. Because he didn't just want to live, he wanted to become something that couldn't die. And while immortality might be his long-term goal, Afton's motivations in the short term are even darker. Because beyond the scientific and supernatural aspect of his experiments, Afton is a predator. He doesn't just kill for necessity, he enjoys it. Think about it. Afton could have used any method to experiment with his soul transfer ideas. He could have worked in secret, testing on willing subjects, or even himself. But he didn't. He chose to target children. That says everything we need to know about the kind of monster he truly is. He lured victims in, deceived them with a friendly face, and then struck when they least expected it. He used trust as a weapon, making his victims feel safe before tearing their lives away. This wasn't just about science, it was about control. He had complete power over his victims, and he relished it. An Afton's choice was for victims and particularly unsettling. The innocence of children makes his crimes all the more horrific. It suggests that he wasn't just after souls, he was about the vulnerability of his victims. He didn't want a challenge, he wanted the absolute dominance. The kids had no way to fight back, no way to resist him, and that what made them the perfect targets. And this aspect of his character makes him one of the most unsettling villains, in my opinion. He's not like just any horror icon who kill out of necessity, revenge, or even compulsion. Afton just chooses his victims carefully, deliberately, and with a level of detachment that makes him all the more horrifying. And one of the most important aspects of Afton's motivation is his desire to play God. He isn't just about experimenting with technology, he's really redefining that very concept of existence. And to him, death is just another problem to solve, another system to crack. And he believes he's the only one smart enough and capable enough to break that barrier. His experiments with Remnant, a mysterious substance in the FNAF universe that seemingly allows souls to linger, proved that he was searching for something more than just longevity. He wanted complete mastery over life and death. And this level of arrogance is what truly cements Afton as one of the unforgettable villains. He isn't just content with being powerful in a normal sense, he wants to redefine power itself. And he really doesn't care how many lives he has to take in order to do it. And perhaps the most tragic and ironic part of Afton's story is that his obsession ultimately destroyed everything he had. I mean, his own family fell apart because of his unchecked ambition. His son, the crying child, was accidentally killed by one of the animatronics, something that would never have happened if Afton had never built them in the first place. And of course his daughter Elizabeth was consumed by Circus Baby, another one of his creations. And his other son Michael was eventually forced to hunt him down and undo his evil. But William, good old William, he never stopped. He never mourned, never questioned his path. If anything, the destruction of his family only seemed to push him further. Instead of seeing these events as a reason to stop, he saw them as just obstacles to overcome. His entire life became about one thing, defying death, and that at all costs. But that's the thing about arrogance. It blinds you. Afton believed he was untouchable, that he could keep killing, keep experimenting, and never face the consequences. But fate had other plans. Ultimately, his overconfidence led to his downfall. First, with his failed escape in FNAF 3, where he was trapped inside the spring bunny suit and left to rot, and later with his digital imprisonment in FNAF VR Help Wanted. And no matter how intelligent he was, no matter how carefully he planned, his greed, his hubris, and his refusal to accept morality or mortality ultimately consumed him. And even after his physical body was destroyed, even after his consciousness was seemingly wiped out, Afton's influence still remains. Because he represents something more than just a villain. He represents the fear of something that truly never dies. His motivations make him unique in the world of horror antagonists. He isn't just a murderer, he's a visionary, a scientist, a narcissist, and a predator, all rolled into one. His need for power, his desire for immortality, and his sheer lack of empathy make him really one of the most terrifying and fascinating villains in modern fiction. And in the fitting twist of fate, Afton's hubris leads to his downfall. While attempting to hide within a springlock suit, he meets a gruesome end, becoming trapped and ultimately perishing inside. However, death is not the end for Afton. He returns as Springtrap, a grotesque fusion of man and machine, symbolizing the monstrous consequences of his actions. This transformation serves as a physical manifestation of his inner corruption, making him an even more terrifying presence in the series. And Afton's influence permeates the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. His actions set up a chain of events that haunt the various establishments, with the vengeful spirits of his victims seeking retribution. Even in death, his legacy endures, with subsequent antagonists and events tracing back to his original sins. This enduring impact cements his status as a central figure in the franchise's lore. And really, despite the extensive lore, many aspects of William's character remain shrouded in mystery. What drove him to commit such heinous acts? Was it a quest for power, a desire for immortality, a broken man, or something else entirely? This ambiguity invites endless speculation and discussion among fans, contributing to the enduring fascination with his character. William Afton, stands as a testament to the power of nuanced character development in storytelling. His complex psychology, ambiguous motivations, and lasting impact on the narrative make him a standout antagonist in modern fiction. By delving into the depths of his character, Five Nights at Freddy's series offers a chilling exploration of human depravity and the consequences of unchecked ambition. So, the next time you're navigating the dark corridors of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, remember that behind the animatronic horrors lies a man whose evil transcends the boundaries of life and death. William Afton isn't just a villain, he's a haunting reminder of the darkness that can reside within us all. And the scariest part, even when you think he's finally gone, when you think the nightmare is finally over, he always comes back. So yeah, thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of the fiction's most compelling antagonists. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more content. Stay safe out there, and so yeah.